Hey everybody, it's Dave Juno, the Meniere's Disease Warrior. I hope you're having a great day. So, now that I am officially diagnosed as bilateral Meniere's, and I'll go into, you know, why it was a kind of a waffle thing for a while. But now that I'm officially diagnosed as bilateral, there's a lot of questions that go into it. So I figured I'd make a video and maybe help some people. So in 2017, I was diagnosed with Meniere's disease in my left ear. Okay, and yeah, the left ear vertigo attacks were relentless. For a while, I was having them 4 or 5 times a week, lasting anywhere from a half hour to all day. And that, we tried all kinds of different things. Gentamicin, steroid shots, prednisone. Now, the prednisone and the steroid shots would put it somewhat at ease for a couple of weeks, but it always came back. So we tried antiviral, because the third doctor I went to see was a researcher of Meniere's, and Dr. Gasik, and he and his son are researchers, and they always thought of it as being viral. Okay, now there's so many theories on why people can have Meniere's disease, and one of them is it can be viral. So we tried 2 different antiviral drugs, nothing. So then he sent me to another doctor who actually did my labyrinthectomy on my left ear. Okay, no, I did not get a cochlear implant. Okay, a lot of people say, "Oh, how come you didn't get a cochlear?" Well, they didn't do it back then, or and what they told me was, "Your right ear here is okay, so we don't need to do that." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So everything was great for 2019. Very minimal vertigo. If I had vertigo, it was like anywhere from a minute to 5 minutes. It was gone. I wasn't even tired afterwards. I would sit down, rest for a little bit, and then back out doing whatever I had to do. So, then that wonderful global virus came around, COVID, and in 2021 I had gotten COVID. And after COVID, I had noticed that the vertigo was back. Now, this year's dead, so we know it ain't coming from here. So the vertigo came back. Now, it wasn't as bad, and that's one thing that I get a lot of questions on. Is the vertigo just as bad with when you're going bilateral? It's just as bad as the first ear. For me, and I think for a lot of others, it's not as bad. It's gone. It's not like a half hour to all day. It might be 20 minutes to 4 or 5 hours. 4 or 5 hours tops. So, I was just still doing my follow-ups with my doctor, and at one point he had said, well, it could be Meniere's, but let's put a tube in, see what happens. We want to preserve your hearing. Okay. So, all the follow-ups and stuff, he would go, well, it's tube dysfunction, station tube defunction, and then he would say it was Meniere's, then he would say it was something else, and then finally he had left the practice, and I liked him, I trusted him. He seemed like if he didn't know something, he was going to look it up. He was going to make phone calls, do whatever, because he's actually made phone calls while with me. Hey, I got a patient here. So I trusted him. He's a really good doctor. So last week, I saw a new doctor, because this one left the practice, and I saw a new doctor, Dr. Chari, and showed her my journal, and all the attacks I've been having, and like I said, the vertigo's not as bad. And she finally said, by reading my journal, okay, which is why I say keep a journal, by reading my journal and looking at my scans on this ear, she's like, you have Meniere's disease. And plus you lost hearing in that ear. You lost more hearing. You're almost severe you're moderate to severe now instead of, just moderate. And she goes, yeah, you're bilateral. And she officially wrote down diagnosed bilateral. So, one question I get, so I am bilateral. And I've always done some research on it. So, for those of you who have it in 1 year, which most of you probably do, the chances of going bilateral, they might be a little higher now. But when I originally researched it, it was about 80% to 20%, meaning 80% of the people don't go bilateral, 20% do. Now, I have seen things that said 50-50, 75-35, 95%. I've seen a bunch of different ones, but the main one I always see is 80-20. So 20% or less, I hope, will go bilateral. Okay, so that's a rough guesstimate. Second, is the vertigo bad? Any vertigo is bad, but it's not as bad as when it was just 1 ear. I will say that it's not. It's, instead of, like I said before, instead of 2 hours to all day, it's maybe a half hour to 2 or 3, maybe 4 hours. 4 hours is pushing it. Is the hearing just as bad? I'm losing the hearing, but I'm not losing it as fast as I did with my right ear. My left ear. My left ear, I lost it pretty quick. It started really with symptoms in 2014, and by the time I got to the doctor, it was probably about 50%. Within 6 months to a year, I only had 5% hearing in that ear, 5% or less. So in my case, it went very quickly. And the one thing you got to understand is we are all different. Even though we're all diagnosed with that same disease, Meniere's disease, and I know some people are going to see this and say, well, I don't have Meniere's disease. Well, okay. Even though we all have the same disease, we're all different. So for me, yeah, the vertigo is less. Tinnitus. Yeah, that's just as bad. That is something that is just as bad in my right ear in my left ear as it is in my right ear. Yes, with the labyrinthectomy, you still will have tinnitus. It doesn't go away. Okay? You'll still get that tinnitus. This ear roars all day, nonstop. This one now is doing it. Even though after the steroid shot I had last week, the roaring seemed to go away. So I can live with that. But hopefully it goes away for longer than a week. So yeah, the tinnitus is just as bad. Hearing, I discussed. My hearing, yeah, it's not, like I said, it's not as fast. Vertigo. The off-balance feeling, that's different. Because normally before, if I closed my eyes, which I do in the shower, okay, I do this on purpose. It's kind of like an exercise. But if I close my eyes before I went bilateral, I would always go to the left, literally left. And I would do this on purpose because I'm trying to walk straight with my eyes closed. Because at night, it's dark. We don't have good balance. So I'd always go to the left. Now, over the last few months, I'm going to the right. Okay? So this ear is really starting. It's going. So I'm going to the right more. Okay? But that's part of it. The dizziness, because vertigo and dizziness are kind of different. Dizziness is off balance, basically. Almost like you're on a boat sometimes. Vertigo is the whole room is spinning. The dizziness is there. It's always there. Sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's not. Today it was kind of bad. As far as off balance, I was flipping and flopping and doing all kinds of stuff this morning. But, it's, for me, and I think for a lot of other people, from what I've heard and what I've talked about, what I've seen, when you go bilateral, that other ear doesn't generally get as bad as the first one. I guess it could, but rule of thumb is it gets bad, but it never gets below, it never becomes totally dead for some reason. They say because you need a function thing. Now, the other question I get is, can they do surgery on you? For years, if you had surgery on one ear, you couldn't get it in the other, I guess. Made no sense to me, but I guess. But you can have surgery. Now, what you can't really do is you can do it, but it's very risky, is another labyrinthectomy. Okay? Because that's just taking out the hearing. You'll be totally deaf. You literally will have no balance function with your ears. So one of your balance functions is totally gone. There's three. There's your eyes, your ears, and your mid-torso type of thing, your center balance. So you only have two things to balance, right? So you'll be taking one out, and then you'll be deaf. I mean, I guess I could put a cochlear implant in, but still, okay? You're going to be totally deaf. So that's kind of out of the question unless it's an extreme case. And usually they will only do a labyrinthectomy if you're totally deaf. They won't do it if you have some hearing. They can't do a vestibular nerve, because if they cut that, they cut your balance. Same as a labyrinthectomy. What they can do is they can put a shunt in. They can do the anaphylactic shunt surgery, which is they go in kind of like a labyrinthectomy. They cut your back here, shave down the bone, all that stuff in there, and then they stick a shunt in for ventilation. So they can do that. And then there's another one called DAPD. I'm still researching it. We talked about it last week. I'm still researching it. I mean, I was up at 4 o'clock this morning researching, trying to find stuff on it. But they do almost like the anaphylactic shunt surgery, except they're not going up as far, and they're making ventilation in another part of it, and then they put some steroid medications and things in that, pack it in there. So it's almost like that. So that's another thing they can do. They can do steroid shots. That's what I had done last week, steroid shot. And as I said in the previous video, it seemed to help me. Tinnitus is gone. I haven't had vertigo in about a week, a little over a week. So they can do that. You can take prednisone too. Gentamicin is kind of a labyrinthectomy. It's a chemical labyrinthectomy. Can they do it? Yeah, because you're not going to lose total hearing, but you're going to lose your balance function. So gentamicin, out of the question. Beta-histine, I don't know much about it except it's a class, an antihistamine drug. It's that antihistamine class. I don't know much about it because none of my doctors will prescribe it. Plus, it's in the United States, it's not FDA approved, so insurance won't pay for it. You got to go to a compound pharmacy. So, and it can be expensive. So, I don't know much about beta-histine. I just know it's not FDA approved, and I just figured I'm just not going to bother, because if it's not FDA approved, my insurance ain't going to cover it. I don't want it. Okay, and 2 doctors have already told me you could take a Bilateral every day or a Claritin every day, and it will give you the same type of effect. You know, it's an antihistamine. It brings the swelling down. Because sometimes histamine's up there, and especially when we get allergies. So yeah, you can do that. But as far as, going bilateral, not everybody does. I mean, mine happened to be COVID related because it happened after COVID. And they tested and everything. I think, I don't know, I can't remember. But mine was after COVID, so that's when I went bilateral. Okay. What was I going to say? Now there's something with the vaccination that people are saying that they're dizzy after the vaccination. I guess. I mean, you are getting a little bit of that virus in you. But there's people claiming they can stick to refrigerators because it leaves them magnetic. I don't know. I would never say not get a vaccine, but, because I've gotten it, and some of you know my story with the vaccine and my daughter-in-law. So So yeah, that's it. I really just wanted to describe, because people do have questions about being bilateral. So far, I'm officially a week into it, but I've been dealing with it for a couple of months, and a couple of years, and so yeah, it's like with anything, uh, it is what it is, and you deal with it, and you move on, and you try to help other people along the way. So on that note, hey guys, have a great time, a great rest of the day, and I will see you all soon. Take care.